What is up everyone, and welcome back to another video. So in today's video guys, what we're going to be talking about is some beginner high ground retakes and build moves. So essentially what I'm trying to do today is give you guys a bunch of different moves that you can use to basically win more fights. But I'm going to try to focus this video on moves that you can actually use in game too, and I'm going to try to make them all as presentable and easy as possible. I notice when a lot of creators make videos like this, they claim it's beginner high ground retakes and then they show you guys a bunch of stuff that is super advanced. So in this video, we're going to be keeping it simple. I'm going to show you guys the fundamental moves you need to know at the beginning, and then I'll show you guys kind of just a couple different retakes that you can use and apply. But before we get into it guys, be sure to drop a like if the video helps you out, subscribe if you're new to the channel and you want to see more, and let me know down in the comments guys what you actually think of these retakes, maybe which one is your favorite, or if you have any others you like to do, if you can describe them. But with all that said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into these retakes. Alrighty guys, so I'm in a build map here and we're going to go ahead and get straight into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is a couple of the more basic techniques, a couple of the fundamentals if you will. So the first fundamental technique that you want to know for this type of fighting, for build fighting, or just for high ground retakes is going to be the scissor ramp. So by scissor ramp, I don't know why it's called scissor ramp, but let me show you what it is. Essentially, I'm going to place a floor here just to start it, and then a ramp above me, ramp below, and I'm going to continue going just like this, holding my ramp out. So obviously, let's say my opponent's up here. What does that do? It blocks me off. Instead of being able to shoot me, he's got to break through some stuff, and by that time, I'm going to have time to react. So that's what the scissor ramp is. It's literally just ramp below you and ramp above you. It's a good way to protect yourself going up and set yourself up super well for going into a retake, essentially. So continuing on that note, the next thing we're going to go over is called the Thwifo cone. So this move was popularized by Ghost Thwifo back in the day, hence its name. And the Thwifo cone is essentially another way to cover yourself, but basically go higher with it. So all you're going to do here is you're going to pull out your wall while you're on a ramp. You can be on a scissor ramp. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that now. So I'm on a scissor ramp, just the last technique I showed you. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my wall and I'm going to wrap walls around the back of me just like that. So this is going to be my move here. Essentially just wrap walls around, and then right at the end I'm going to add a cone. So just like this, I can do it over and over again. This is what I would recommend you guys do if you're not familiar with it. Basically just do it over and over again like that in creative. And then looking from a hypothetical opponent's perspective, you can see you're pretty much getting cover a lot higher. So if I'm following you on your ramp or something like that, I'm going to be really slow. I got to mantle up, and otherwise you're just more covered and you have more room to work with. So that's pretty much the purpose of the Thwifo cone. It's to cover you up, but also give you a little bit of height with that. So it makes it a lot easier for you to actually set up for a high ground retake or even implement that into a retake. All right, guys. So now that we've gone through that, the next thing I want to talk about is something that starts really simple, but can get pretty complicated. And that's going to be side jumps. So side jumps are pretty much going to be anything where you have a cone or a floor above you and you jump off to the side. So it can be something like landing on your floor and ramp, just like that. That's going to be a little bit more advanced, but that's the way I tend to do it. The way I'm going to recommend most of you do it is as simple as this. You got to get used to the movement and it'll take a little bit of time to adapt to it. But if you're a beginner player, what I want you to eventually adapt to is going to be this. You're going to want to have a cone above you and some sort of scissor ramp, or even just a ramp depending on the situation. I want you to jump out here, land on a floor. Now I know it looks really simple, but I'm telling you guys, when I was a beginner personally, this took me so long to get good at. So these side jumps can get pretty intense, but for now what I want you to learn is this landing right here. And then from landing right there, one thing you can do is go straight into a scissor ramp. So if you didn't see that in full speed, basically what I'm doing is jumping on the floor and I'm continuing to look down. If I look down, what that's going to do is I switch to my ramp. It's going to build right above me. And then I just look forward and continue my scissor ramp. Another variation of that you want to learn is going to be the elevated side jump. So essentially what this elevated side jump is what I showed you earlier. It's literally just landing on top of your floor, but also landing on top of a ramp. So it's just going to give you a lot more height. That is much harder to do. I'd say probably about 10% as many people can do that. Obviously, you need to kind of be careful about your movement. So I don't know if the movement advice would really necessarily help with this, or if it's something you need to just get used to. The elevated side jump that I just showed you guys, I don't want you guys to get caught up with that, because the fundamental technique I want you to learn is this. One great thing you can do going off of that side jump is essentially just this. So you do like a little turnaround kind of thing. So literally what I'm doing is I'm turning around and placing two walls up so fast, and then I'm turning all the way back around and doing my floor and ramp. just like that. That is, once again, super advanced technique. I do not recommend any beginner even worry about it, but it is something to keep in mind. So with that said, guys, now that we've gone over all the techniques you need to know, we're gonna go straight into the retakes. All right, guys, so getting into our first technique, and this one I call a side jump into 90s or 180. Yeah, so side jump into 90s is what I'm gonna call it. There's no official name for this. I'm sure it's been done before, but essentially what this technique is we're gonna go ahead and start on our scissor ramp, and you're gonna notice a pattern. Pretty much all of our techniques are gonna start like this, because there's really no purpose in not having at least a ramp above us. So what we're gonna do here, guys, is we're gonna go ahead and set up something to block us. So we're gonna do a floor or a cone, or you can do both and get fancy like I did. And then what we're gonna do here is something very simple. Once again, beginner friendly. We're gonna do our side jump that we practiced, and you might have to practice this for a bit in creative to get good at it. But we're gonna do our side jump, we're gonna land on our floor, and from here, we're gonna do kind of like a scissor ramp, but instead of continuing up, we're just gonna straight up do 2 90s. So you can kind of get another perspective on it here. You're jumping off to the side, you're covered, you're doing your 90s, and by the time your opponent knows what's going on, unless they're already a really, really good player, you're going to be way above them. So let me show you guys that technique one more time. I'm just going to show you guys in full speed right here. So we're going to do our side jump, and we're going to go straight into our 90s. Couple of small notes is when you do the side jump, you definitely want to look down. That way you can place this ramp above you. And for the 90s, you can also substitute that for a 180. So essentially what it would look like is me just going like that instead. Lastly, guys, you can substitute your side jump for an elevated side jump just like this. Another thing you can do here is place a wall right through your cone and then do the elevated side jump and then whatever you want to do. So all that's going to do is basically give you a little bit more cover. But with that said, that's pretty much it for this technique. So for this next technique, we're actually going to be introducing a new little build move called the sway jump. If you don't know phase sway from back in the day, this is pretty much something that he made really popular and a technique that he liked to use to kind of be flashy a little bit. But as always, it's going to start with one of our fundamentals. So we're going to go ahead and do our scissor ramp. And what we're going to do from here is a thwifo cone. So you can do it to the left or right side, depending on your preference. I'll just do left. And then from here, we're going to go off to the side of our thwifo cone. We're going to go ahead and do a ramp, floor, ramp, and we're going to jump onto this ramp. From here, we're just going to edit through here, and you can do whatever you want after that. You can do some 180s, you can do some 90s, or pretty much anything else to gain height, but this is the fundamental technique right here. So for the sake of the example, I'll just do some 90s. If I'm 3 layers above you when you first start the technique, I end up 3 layers below you if I don't move. It's a pretty quick way to gain height, and honestly, it's really, really effective. Once again, 90s or 180s, dealer's choice. Whichever side you want to do it to, dealer's choice. I would recommend you do it in the opposite side of where your opponent is. So if my opponent's right here, you would want to do it off to the right. So with that said, let's go ahead and do this technique in full speed. I'm going to try to get it just off the dome here. Boom, boom, and then boom, boom. So the other note I want to give for this technique is definitely that you're going to need some practice on this move. But basically, all you're fundamentally doing is, I can set it up right here. It's literally just thwifo cone, which we already talked about. It's going to take some practice, but it's not the hardest technique in the world. And then ramp, floor, jump, ramp. Then you edit through and do whatever you want. So I know it can kind of look a little bit flashy and complicated, but it's honestly not. It's just something you kind of got to get the hang of. All right, guys. So next up, and our next technique is something I call the double cone reversal. So it is another thwifo cone based technique actually, but this is actually very, very versatile and something you can use in probably 1,000 different situations, and you can use it a lot of different ways. So getting into this, once again, big shocker here, starting with a scissor ramp. And then what we're going to do is shocker, a thwifo cone. So this is the start to our retake right here, but we're going to continue on by keeping one side of our thwifo cone open, and we're going to do a cone, and we're going to turn around. So we're going to go ahead and place our cone, turn around, wall ramp. Now, to be honest with you guys, that is pretty much the retake. The reason that's pretty much the retake is because you can do whatever you want from here. Our goal was basically to change your direction a little bit so you have an opportunity to mix your opponent up. So what some people will do here once they do this retake is they will actually just turn around and continue to go out the other side and try to trick their opponent into thinking they're going out the other one. Another thing people will do is just do a side jump. So you can do an elevated or regular side jump, whatever you choose. So that's another good way to do it. Or what some people will do is they'll take this cone, they'll edit it, and they'll actually do another sway jump and then just do some 90s or 180s or whatever. The way I prefer to continue it is either with a sway jump or with just an elevated side jump, honestly. But it is a good technique. Once again, here's full speed. We're going to do our thwifo cone, reverse, and you can do whatever you want from there. It does take a little bit of practice when it comes to the movement side of things, but it is honestly a pretty simple technique once you get the hang of it. And with that said, guys, we're going to get into our final technique here. So this one's going to take a little bit of setting up, but this is basically for the situation in which your opponent is above you. So we're looking at something like this right here. Basically, I'm ramping up to an opponent, they ramped above me, and I call this the window retake. You're going to understand very quickly why I call it the window retake. First thing you want to do is basically recognize that your opponent's above you here. So you want to know what's going on, and you kind of have to apply this in a particular circumstance. So what you want to do from here is you're going to want to go ahead and place a wall right in front of you. You don't need to mark that wall. We're going to edit this wall, window, cone. So we're going to block off their ramp. And if you want to get extra fancy with it, you can actually go off to both sides, add cones too. Or if you want to make it even simpler without having to worry about the window, you can just cone, 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 wall. Or another thing you can do is actually turn around just like that, 180. Or you can also kind of dip off to the side here and just start cranking 90s until height limit if you want to do that. That'll get you way above your opponent. By the time they have the chance to actually escape these cones, it'll be pretty much over for them. So once again, guys, you've got the window variation just like that. Or if you want to get fancy with it, you can do the triple cone variation just like that. Boom. And then from here, you want to definitely get the wall in here so they can't just edit on you. And then it's pretty much dealer's choice, guys. Once again, my preference is typically just going to be to stay on the same tile and crank out some 90s. And then from here, you can see how much height I have. It's pretty much unbeatable. But with that said, that's going to wrap it up for that last technique, guys. But with all that said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. So all in all, hopefully those retakes help you out, guys. If you found this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more. And of course, guys, it's super appreciated if you could use code TECHO in the item shop. It's 100% free for you, and it seriously does help me out a lot. So thank you so much to everyone who's using it. And with that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.